The Needle Drop's 7 most hated reviews. What's up guys, it's Mike D Hip Hop, and in this video we're going to be talking about The Needle Drop, or Anthony Fantano, and 7 of his most hated music reviews. If you don't know who Fantano is, he's the most popular music reviewer here on YouTube, and he's put out hundreds of reviews. And with all those reviews, there tend to be a lot that some people really disagree with, most of the time those being hip hop reviews, so those are the ones we're going to be talking about today. Starting off at number 7, we have his Childish Gambino Because the Internet review. And on this review, he has about 50% dislikes because he ended up giving this album a 5 out of 10. He got a lot of hate on this because a lot of people, especially Gambino fans, thought that this is one of the best hip-hop albums that came out back in 2013. A lot of people consider this Gambino's best work, and it also introduced a lot of people to Gambino as a rapper. Some of the reasons Anthony disliked the album was he wasn't the biggest fan of the screenplay that he had throughout the album, and he thought it was too dependent on the songs. He also thought a lot of the album had some uninteresting lyrics, flows, and singing. At number 6, we have his Kendrick Lamar Damn album review. Now the reason I put this one a little bit lower is because the like to dislike ratio on the video really isn't bad at all. And also the score that he gave on this album, which was a 7 out of 10, also isn't bad. But it did get some hate because a lot of people consider this the best hip-hop album of 2017 so far, and people expected this album to get at least an 8 out of 10. The review also started the huge "You gave Damn a 7" meme that you see in his comments in all of his videos. But the reason Anthony gave this a 7 out of 10 is mainly because of 4 songs. He thought the songs Loyalty and Yeah were just okay and forgettable, and he said the songs Love and God were the worst songs Kendrick had ever put on an album, mainly because of the singing in his tracks. And at number 5, we have his The Weeknd House of Balloons review. In terms of like to dislike ratio, this is his worst, but it is a little bit of an older video, so it didn't get as many views. But the reason it was disliked so much is because he went the entire video thinking The Weeknd was an R&B group, which obviously he is not. The Weeknd is only one person. But he ended up giving this album a really bad score of 3 out of 10. And that got a lot of people mad because a lot of people consider this a classic mixtape, and it's really what got The Weeknd's career started. But the one thing that I think people got the most upset about was he only had one real reason for not liking this album, and that's because he thought that lyrically everything The Weeknd talked about he just couldn't sympathize with because he thought he came off as a tool, so he just couldn't enjoy it because of that. And at number 4, we have his Schoolboy Q Blank Face album review. Now this video ended up getting a lot of dislikes with about 7,000, and that's because he gave this album a score of 5 out of 10. And a lot of people did not like this because for most, this was one of the best hip-hop albums that came out back in 2016. And also, Schoolboy Q being from TDE, he has a pretty huge fan base. And this album was also critically acclaimed by a ton of critics, but just not so much with Anthony. He didn't like it that much because he thought the album didn't have much of a concept and was unorganized. He also thought the album was a bit too long and called a lot of the songs on the album duds. And overall, he said it had some unsuccessful experiments, and lyrically, it was sometimes not focused. And number 3, we have the Travis Scott Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight album review. Now, Anthony ended up going pretty hard on this album, giving it a really bad score, 3 out of 10, and because of that, he ended up getting about 10,000 dislikes on this video. Now, me personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of this album, especially compared to how much I loved Rodeo, but I definitely thought a 3 out of 10 was a little bit too low. Now, a lot of people, especially Travis Scott fans, didn't like the fact that he didn't like the songs Beebs in the Trap and Through the Late Night. He also talks about how bad Travis was lyrically, but a lot of people, when it comes to his music, tend to pay more attention to the sound other than that, and that's definitely something people did not like. And a big reason for Anthony's dislike was he thought a lot of the songs on here had some really bad structure. At number 2, we have the J. Cole 2014 Forest Hills Drive album review. Now, a lot of people, even me, and I'm not really the biggest J. Cole fan, love this album and think it's probably J. Cole's best work. Some even say that in a few years this album can be considered a classic. So that's what got people really mad when Fantano ended up giving this album a score of 6 out of 10. A lot of people hated the fact that he said he did not like the song No Role Models, which is one of J. Cole's most popular and loved songs. Some probably got upset when he said he thought the whole second half of the album was uninteresting. And he also said that he didn't like some of the singing, lackluster songs, and cringe lines that were throughout the album. Finally, at number 1, we have his Kanye West My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy album review. Now this video right here is by far Fantano's most infamous review. 6 years later, he still gets tons of comments about this. And for me personally, this is my favorite album of all time, and I think for a lot of people, they consider this the best hip-hop album ever made. However, Fantano didn't really agree with that. He ended up giving this album a score of 6 out of 10. And for that reason, this video ended up getting about 9,000 dislikes and only 3,000 likes. One thing he said that I definitely disagree with is he said he thought some of the hooks were weak and also a little bit corny. But the one thing he said that makes it the most hated review by far is that for almost the entire review, he seems to praise a lot of the album, but the reason he ended up giving it a 6 out of 10 is because he thinks you need to have some type of interest in Kanye to really enjoy it, and he really doesn't care all that much. But honestly, I think this album alone, just because of the production, deserves a way higher score. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Let me know in the comments some of Anthony's reviews that you guys disagreed with. Also, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, make sure to check out Anthony if you haven't already. But I'll see you guys in the next video.